Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our final information session of this admissions cycle. It's been so great to meet a lot of prospective and admitted students to the program. Today we're joined by Dr. Shelley Wiseman, one of the other people who has been really instrumental in this program. Unfortunately, Professor LaBelle cannot join us today due to a meeting conflict. But we're excited to get in today and talk to this group. We have a smaller group today, so we're hoping to really get to know all of you, what draws you to the program, as we share a little bit about what caused us to kind of form the program and where it is today. All right, looks like our slides are up, so welcome everyone. We hope you're enjoying the spring as it hopefully gets a little warmer where you are. Today, we are going to introduce ourselves and all of our roles within the program. Then we're going to look over the program kind of at a large scale, all the things that make it up, the schedule, financial components, everything in between. We'll talk about career opportunities and where our alumni have ended up. And then we'll go into an admissions overview, what to expect when having the application submitted to the program. And then finally, of course, leaving plenty of time for all your questions. We're going to start with introducing all of ourselves, and then we'd love to turn it over to all of you, whether you're able to go off of mute and chat with us or just type in the chat. Either way is fine, so we can learn a little bit about the people who are interested in our program. First, I will start with myself. My name is Jenny Jansen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the program coordinator for the Addiction Policy and Practice program. What that means is I help support graduate students from application to graduation through recruitment and admissions work, academic advising, and other various programmatic needs. As such, I am a good resource for overall questions about the program and application logistics. I will now pass it to Shelley Wiseman.
Hey everyone, I'm Shelley Wiseman. I'm a professor in the master's program. I teach a class called Addiction and Mental Health Law and Policy, and I've been at Georgetown about 7 years. Before that, I worked in state government, and also legal services. I'm a lawyer representing people in civil rights cases and suing the government. Then I went to work for the government. And, one, I think concept around developing this program in the first place was to take the experience and expertise of all of our faculty and really think about what would have been good for us to know when starting out in a policy career. What would have kind of given us a real head start? Because to make an impact and make a change, it really it's hard to do, and it takes a lot of years of kind of cobbling together knowledge and information and building a network and figuring out how to be the most high impact. And so that was kind of the impetus for starting this program. And we're going to go over a little bit about who our professors are and our faculty so you all can really see, uh, how we leverage the experience and expertise of everyone that is part of this program. So I look forward to hearing from each of you about your interest in the program and what kind of questions you have. And I'll turn it back to Jenny.
Great, awesome. Dr. Adam Myers, feel free to introduce yourself, and then we'll move to our special guest for today, Ben, one of our program alumni.
Great. Welcome all. I'm Adam Myers. I'm a long-term basic science professor in the medical school. And somewhere around half a dozen years ago, when Georgetown started talking about this addiction program to be led by Professor Regina LaBelle, it was a great interest to me because, like so many in our society, I've been affected by issues of addiction, not personally lived experience, but living through addiction issues within, my larger family. So I knew the importance of this area and how important policy especially was at that time and continuing through till today. And Regina LaBelle was a great candidate to run the program, and we were um, going full steam ahead when she was appointed acting director of the Office of the National Drug Control of Policy at the White House. And at that point, I jumped in and helped organize a program and lead it for the first 6 or 8 months. Shelley was involved in that as well. And as time went on, I've had less direct involvement with the program, but I'm still active in occasionally advising students who are interested in graduate programs or research after their time in the ADPP. Also, I'm very active in the admissions process and these information sessions, et cetera. So welcome and feel free at any time to reach out to me if you have anything you want to talk about. Jenny?
All right, thank you so much. Let's pass it to Ben.
And hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Ben Freifeld. As mentioned, I'm one of the alumni of this great program. I was in the first cohort that graduated in summer of 2022. When I entered the grad program, I had just finished going back to school and graduated with a bachelor's in social work degree and had been working at a community-based harm reduction organization doing direct services. And currently, I work for the state of Maryland, where I'm the associate director for policy and advocacy at Maryland's Office of Overdose Response. And I'll share more about that later and sort of my path through the program and navigating career things. I think a little bit later on in our time together.
All right, wonderful. Since we have a smaller group on the call today, we'd love to pass it to all of you. If anyone would like to go off of mute or type in the chat, introduce themselves, where they're zooming in from, and what brings them to this webinar today, we'd love to hear from you.
I'm Miriam Clevin. I'm in Chicago. I am a social worker by training and have been in private practice for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years now. I am interested in this program because I have a son who's been mostly in treatment for years, bounced around, and our experiences with treatment have ranged from like trauma with a capital T, right? Like the kind of event that would just PTSD anyone, and to like deceptive, misleading, to angels from brilliant, compassionate angels, right? And after just a few recent misleading whatever, I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I'm a pretty educated consumer, and we were duped. And I just started looking around for like resources, and it didn't seem like there were that many. And I was looking around for groups that lobby for not over-regulation, but some kind of regulation of things like sober houses, standards of care in addiction. And again, it seems like it's the Wild West. And so I'm ready to retire from clinical practice, and I want to figure out what my next act, well, I kind of know that I want this to be my next act. This is like kind of the final thing I want to do in this world and do well. And so just in my internet search, I found the program. I was like, oh my God, this could set me up to either, like, I want to know if there are places working on this. And if there are, I want to work for them. And if not, I want to start something. So that's who I am.
Thank you so much for sharing. We're glad you're here.
Hi, I'm Logan. I'm calling in from St. Louis, Missouri, actually from Georgia Southern, where I'm finishing up my undergraduate degree in anthropology and public health. I'm interested in doing recovery research. My mom is in long-term recovery, and I grew up going to NA meetings at churches, so it's kind of where my foundation starts. But in college, I've gotten really involved in different research aspects. So I created my own internship at a local recovery community organization and created a program evaluation for them. And I'm working on making that standardized so they can continue to use that. I also am in our honors college, and so my honors undergraduate thesis is looking at substance use in Georgia's shrimping community. and how that already dying industry is being impacted by substance use and their perspectives on those crew members who are using different substances. So I was recommended the program by one of my professors. I have an interest in policy as well, so I think it'd be a nice blend of my interests, and I'm just excited to see. Uh, I am packing. Our checkout time of this hotel is at 11 o'clock our time, so I will be my camera will be off for most of the information session, but I'm excited to be here and listen.
Right, no worries. Great to see you again, Logan. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jacob Parcell. I'm a little bit more local, based here in Arlington. I'm the Chief Growth Officer of National Capital Treatment and Recovery, so an inpatient and outpatient recovery center based in Northern Virginia. Interested in better understanding how the program can help from an advocacy perspective, but look forward to hearing more. So thank you, guys.
Great, thanks so much for joining us, Jacob. It's great to hear from all of you. We will go swiftly into talking about the rest of our faculty here. I'll pass it off to Shelley again, so you can get a sense of them, even though they're not on the call today.
Great. And thanks everybody for talking a little bit about your interest. I'll say that, so we're in our fifth cohort now, and our sixth will be this summer. Um, and every one of your experiences, it has been reflected in the students and alumni that come through our program. It's like the whole range. It's people fresh out of undergrad who, at some point along the way in their life or in their college journey or high school journey even became interested in this topic area for one reason or another. Um, a lot of people with family member experience, either folks that are in recovery or still kind of struggling out there, or who have lost somebody. And then we do have quite a few folks who are in recovery themselves or who have other types of lived experience on many different pathways. We have folks who this is definitely a second or third career in their life, and they, take their kind of entire educational experience and breadth of professional expertise and their personal experience and marry it all with this new education and network. I mean, that's, I think, the one of the biggest, I don't want to say offerings. I don't know how to even describe it, but it's beyond just learning the things. This is a very small world of folks who are doing policy in this space. And I'm going to get into kind of who our professors are. These are leaders in this space. There's a slew of guest speakers that come into the seminars. There's a lot of opportunities to engage with folks in the field. And basically, our students like meet and connect to a very large amount of people that are leaders and doing work in this space, all the organizations um, that are making change from multiple different perspectives, whether it's from the provider side of things, from family, from advocacy, government. So, we really have like, it's a really interesting group of students every year because everyone brings something different, whether they're, like I said, newly graduated from college or mid-career or even later, after having, had a long career in something else that's might even be unrelated or something related. We do also have a lot of folks that work in the space in kind of a clinical or administrative capacity that really want to make the bridge to policy, that say, hey, I've seen a lot of stuff over the course of my time working in this space, but like, how do I actually change some SHIT, right? And we get a lot of folks like that. Um, so every one of you, has been kind of there are folks that have had similar or related types of journeys, both in our faculty and in our student body and alumni. So Our first few professors up here, you can see Dr. Lattimore. She's an epidemiologist. So she teaches the epi class, and does some tremendous work around social determinants of health, around equity, and she works with states. She's done work at Johns Hopkins at the national level. She's incredible. Brandon Del Pozo, he's a former police officer in the NYPD and was chief of police of Burlington, Vermont. And then he went on to get his PhD at Brown and is, using all of that experience to bring a public health lens into the kind of world of public safety. Dr. Compton is at NIDA, leading national research around addiction, substance use. He's been a professor for many, many years, and he teaches actually two classes, one in the fall and one in the spring, um, on this kind of psychology of addiction and foundations of addiction, and is a very kind of gifted educator as well. We can go on to the next group. Dr. Einstein is with the American Society of Addiction Medicine. She was at NIDA for many years as well. She teaches the neuro class. Dr. Jones is at SAMHSA, which is the federal agency overseeing funding and programming to states related to substance use and mental health. He also was at the CDC before. He's had a long career designing and developing research and policy on these topics. And Dr. El Sabawi, she teaches the kind of one of the foundational first classes, U.S. addiction policy, where she'll talk about the history of where we've been and where we are now. She's a lawyer and a PhD, a researcher. Dr. Jones teaches two classes also. It's data. So data one and data two. One folks have in the first summer and the second one in the second summer. So we kind of bookend with data and measures. And then the next group, there's me. I teach the law class, and I'm teaching it right now, and it's so much fun. We talk about litigation and the Constitution. What a time to be learning about constitutional law in our country. We have all different perspectives too, I'll say. Represented in our class from, the whole range of politics. And we have a lot of international students from time to time. So, like right now, we have a student from Colombia who, gives us that perspective of working in the space and, that kind of global perspective. We usually have some international students, so that's really interesting. And then Beth Connolly, she's like a 35, 40-year career in this space in state government, being a commissioner of different agencies there, and then working in the federal government at the White House. She's does the healthcare finance class because you cannot separate the policy from the money. The money is everything, right? So we can all have a great idea, but if can't pay for it, then that's all it is. So yeah, that's so those are our faculty, and of course Regina LaBelle, Professor LaBelle. Um, Neither Professor LaBelle or I are doctors, by the way, we're lawyers. Regina LaBelle teaches the seminar, which is weekly in the fall and in the spring, where it basically synthesizes everything that folks are learning in the other courses into kind of concrete themes of what's going on out there in the conversation currently and bringing in a lot of speakers and discussion. So that's like a Friday afternoon seminar every week. All right. So again, why are we doing this? Well, we've got a problem in our country and we have not solved that problem, as Miriam so wonderfully described. We've made some strides, we've come some ways, but there's a long, long way to go. And We know that a lot of folks who end up in decision-making roles in this field mm, sometimes don't make those decisions based on science or evidence. It's sometimes have no expertise in this topic at all. And so our concept here is to say, you know, we need folks making decisions that understand the research, understand how to synthesize evidence and science and turn it into actionable policy. Also know how to actually make those changes. Um, so that's what we aim to prepare folks to do. And what we see is a cohort of alumni that are in these roles now that really, really are making an impact. I want to pause and turn it to Ben to talk about a couple things. One is, your experience with the professors in this program and how that went for you, and then how you're seeing what you learned in the program translate into your role now working at a very high level in state government.
Absolutely. Um, as far as my experience in the program with faculty and the classes, as I mentioned, when I came in to the grad program, I just finished, I had dropped out of college and then went back to school and finished my bachelor's degree in social work. And so when I came into this program, with the first semester containing a healthcare financing and a stats class and all that, and knowing that like neuroscience was coming up in the fall, I definitely felt a bit intimidated, not having had a lot of hard science classes in years and years and years. And what I found was that the professors were so ready to work with us, to work with me, to like break this down in ways that felt totally understandable, translate it into like super practical applications and ways of looking at the material, and just help me through it. So if anybody else does, sort of have those feelings around stepping into hard science classes after some time off, just know that, the experience with it is really, really patient, and goes really well. I loved the classes. I found that everything built on what came right before it. So, with that first semester having the financing piece, like Shelley mentioned, like you have to understand the way that the money works, how it gets sent out, and how that influences what's possible. And then learning the sort of foundation of drug policy, addiction policy in this country in Dr. Osabawi's class, and sort of the basic stats in Dr. Jones' class. Everything else built from that. And it just kept going. And so it all just kept making sense. Shelley also spoke some about the seminar class with Professor LaBelle. And one thing I want to say about that was probably my favorite class because in combining everything that we had been talking about every week, it gave the opportunity for me as a student, and I think that my peers would say the same thing. We all had the chance to kind of like carve out what in any given week stood out to us the most, or in any given semester, and then use that to sort of guide the direction that we would take in these like policy proposal projects that we worked on. And I remember Professor LaBelle really encouraging me to treat that class like an opportunity to explore whatever it was that I was sort of like hyperfixated on, or whatever my niche interest was in that moment, to really look at it, because she reminded me that one day I'd have a job where I don't always get to completely choose what it is I'm specializing on and looking at. And so to treat that as my time to really just bore into something and become an expert on it. As far as how I've been able to translate what I learned in the program into my role now, my first job out of grad school focused pretty exclusively on regulatory policy and on rulemaking and writing comment letters to federal agencies, which was something I knew nothing about before the grad program, and that I learned a great deal about in it. And I was able to just hit the ground running, writing comment letters on behalf of the organization I worked for, targeting primarily to SAMHSA, looking at, encouraging them to change federal rules and regulations around access to addiction treatment. And then in my current role, where I am with the state of Maryland, I work a lot on legislative policy in addition to regulatory work. And one thing that Shelley described is about how the vision for this program was a lot about making sure that the people making the decisions had the information, and had science on their side beyond just their good intentions. And what I have found, especially working with legislators, is that there are a lot of people who are trying to represent their constituents, who care about this issue, but don't necessarily have professional background in the issue. And where I have been able to come in is to try to bring in the science of it, the evidence of it, what I learned in grad school, what I've learned since then, and have conversations that, I try as hard as I can to not be accusatory, but to try to like break through stigma in a way that can be so hard to do with people who, just don't have the background in it, but is so crucial in order to help build better policy. And I think that that is one of the most important things that I learned in the program, is just about how to translate these concepts that can be routine for us once we've been steeped in this field for a bit. But for so many of the decision makers on this stuff, they don't have that background. And so trying to have those conversations in a way that, sort of call them in rather than call them out, and work towards, solutions and progress.
That's great, Ben. Thanks for sharing that. And I see Professor LaBelle has joined us, so I'm sure she will pop in as needed. So we're going to talk a little bit about the program and what folks can expect. There's one of our alumni, Aaron Sabel, with President Joe Biden. I mean, I don't think it's a exaggeration to say this is the level that folks come into the program without always knowing how do I get to make a change, and then they leave like this. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I think part of it is there really is, this is the first program that's ever been of this kind. And I think we've really gotten to shape it with folks that have this level of access. And there's like a just such a need for talented, smart, motivated people who know what they're doing to get in there and do the jobs. And you can see that with where our alumni have ended up. But we'll go over the program. So it's 1 year full time in Washington, D.C. So our first semesters in the summer is on Zoom, the rest is in person. We have had folks, I know people live in different places. Most people relocate to DC for this. We do have some people that do a part-time and stay where they live because they've got, jobs and kids and a house and whatever. You can't always like pick up everything and leave, and they fly back and forth. But it's, that's definitely harder than being in person. But all that to say is it's 1 year. So there is a part-time option also for folks that are working and can't do the full-time. And as I mentioned, this is the only degree of its kind. There's nothing else like this. And then you have the tuition, about 54,000. And this is probably one of the less expensive graduate programs, or maybe the least expensive graduate program at Georgetown. I don't know, Adam, if you have insight on that, and we just made it for 1 year for a few reasons. One, so it's not 2 years of $54,000. And two, because, we need people to be ready to do this now and to get through this and get out there and change some stuff. So that's, those are a few reasons why, like there's a kind of built-in scholarship, so to speak, because of this. I know it doesn't sound like a lower price, but in comparison to other programs at Georgetown, and comparable programs at other universities, it's relatively inexpensive. I don't know, Adam, if you have anything to add on that.
So yeah, at Georgetown, it's definitely one of a handful or two of discounted programs out of many, many programs. So we have a tuition that's already taking into account merit, et cetera. So we don't have merit scholarships within our program. I think probably Jenny will say quite a bit more about financing later on, but it does make it a little bit more affordable. And of course, really having to live in Washington, D.C. for 12 months as opposed to 18 months or 2 years is a huge financial difference. So it's not cheap. We wish it was less, but it is what it is.
Okay. So here's what the schedule would look like. As Ben mentioned, summer one is healthcare financing, U.S. addiction policy, which is kind of a history course, and then data one. And that's 6 weeks, really getting in there, intensive, I'll say. Then the fall is in person. So if folks do need to relocate, you don't have to be there July 1 kind of thing. You can come at the start, which is late August or early September. I don't know exactly when the first day of school is this fall.
Typically last week of August.
Yeah, so it gives people a little bit more time if they need to relocate. Um, and then in the fall, it's the neuro class, Fundamentals of Neurobiology, the seminar, Foundations of Addiction 1, and then the epidemiology course. And then in the spring, we have the law class, that's me, the seminar again, Foundations of Addiction 2, and then a policy elective. So this is folks getting to select an elective from all across the university. So a lot of people do a class in the public policy school. You could do a class at the law school. You could do other types of other different things, something that you're interested in that is a related topic area. So we see all kinds of different selections. And that's also when people start thinking about their capstone. So you'll have a project at the end, a major project. And then in the summer, it is comparative approaches to addiction policy. That's international. And that's Brendan Del Pozo teaches that class. And then data two and the capstone is kind of the big undertaking in the summer. And then that's it. 1 year goes by real quick. And folks also do internships and things like that during the year as well. This would be the part-time schedule, and it's not set in stone, but this is generally what's offered as kind of a part-time option. And I won't go through everything, but if people have more questions about that, we can talk about it more. There's Ben with the governor of Maryland. So again, people graduate and it's kind of wild to watch. I think when we started this, this is like more than what we would have hoped for. And it's been pretty cool to watch. And these are examples of places that our alumni work now or have worked. Different trade organizations, American Medical Association, American Society of Addiction Medicine, the American Psychiatric Association. Then you have government, a lot of folks in government, either in the federal government or in states like Maryland, New York, DC, other parts of the country, Texas. We have an alumni that's the chair of the DC Opioid Settlement Commission. So just chairing the committee that decides where settlement money goes from all the lawsuits against opioid manufacturers and distributors. White House. We have a lot of folks working in the kind of advocacy space. Um, Folks in particular who've had family member experience that want to take that perspective and change things. They're working in different family focused advocacy groups like Song for Charlie is one of them. Shatterproof is a national organization that we've had a lot of folks working with. Also in academia, a lot of people doing research and things like that in academic institutions.
Great. And Ben, if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about your kind of career and its relationship to the program before we move on, feel free.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to restate, I work for Maryland's Office of Overdose Response, which is a coordinating office. We're situated within the office of the governor and are overseen, in fact, by the lieutenant governor of Maryland. And my boss, her title is she's the special secretary for overdose response. And in my role there, I am the primary policy advisor to the special secretary. So I work on regulatory and legislative policy. Maryland's legislative session is roughly the first 90 days of the calendar year. So we're right in the thick of it right now. But outside of that kind of mid-January to April period, I do a lot of regulatory work and have, sort of ongoing work with other departments, other agencies around things like recovery friendly workplaces is a big ongoing project right now. My office also administers Maryland's opioid restitution funds. I don't spend 100% of my time on that work, but definitely adjacent to it, and help some with advising kind of where that money goes. In the picture here, I'm doing an naloxone Narcan training for the governor and lieutenant governor. This was on the news. It was a lot of fun. I used to do naloxone trainings in my role at the community organization that I referenced at the beginning of the call. And so I love whenever I get to do that stuff now. And that is another really cool part of my job, is that when I'm sort of outside of the legislative session, I will go to conferences. I've done big trainings and presentations at conferences. I did a department-wide training for the Maryland Department of Labor on naloxone, on addiction and recovery, and on the sort of social determinants of substance use and of addiction. And I also did that same training for the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. So these are trainings that were attended by like over 200 employees in each case, which is not something that I had really envisioned myself doing in the past, with speaking to groups this large. But another part of the grad program was giving a lot of presentations in a lot of different settings, never to that many people, but certainly enough times and with strong constructive feedback that I think has just helped me, in the professional setting, just be ready for whatever gets thrown at me. And I also led that same training for BGE, the big energy company in Maryland. So it's just been really interesting for me to see all the different ways, the different types of organizations, both in and outside of government, that are, really hungry for this information right now. Because as Shelley said at the outset of the call, there's an obvious, crisis or issue going on in this country that a lot of people are connected to, and a lot of people want to help and do something about, including like the big utility company. They were, really grateful for that information. There have also been so many times in my, still short career that I have reached out to, as issues have come up, to the professors that I had in this program that, Shelley ran through earlier. Probably 2/3 to 3/4 of those professors I have emailed or called at some point in the last, 3+ years that I've been in my current role, because an issue has come up that has been in one of their specialty fields. And the folks are still available. And so just to speak to what I got out of the program, it was both, the skills I learned in order to hit the ground running, as I described earlier, that was really invaluable, but also just those connections and sort of knowing who the experts are and being able to call them so that I can, have a higher impact in my little sphere of this world.
Yeah, and you'll see here in the top corner about mentorship. So actually, students get assigned and paired with 2 mentors in this program. One is a career mentor that students get assigned with in the fall, and the other is a capstone mentor. So it's, in addition to the professors and all the alumni who are all in, pretty high level roles, people also get formal mentorship that's really kind of thoughtful about who you are, what your career goals are, and who can really kind of help take you under their wing and move you in the right direction, as well as a capstone mentor that can help with your project.
I do have a quick comment on the capstone if there's
yeah,
still.
Yeah.
So I did my capstone project on stigma faced by people who use drugs in medical settings, and in particular in the emergency department, and looking at a policy intervention towards that, which is something I'm very, very passionate about. And happy to talk more about if people are interested after this call. I'll share my email. But what I wanted to say about this is that I'm currently supervising an intern at my job who's a graduate student at Hopkins. And I had had this student work on some background and some written testimony for a bill that's in the Maryland General Assembly right now. And she sent me a draft of what she'd been working on and had cited a source, and then wrote in a comment asking if this was an acceptable source to use because it traced back to the author of the source. The byline was that they were a current graduate student in the Georgetown program. And this is a few years old. So this person has since graduated, but I guess the page had not been updated. But I'm confident that it was this person's capstone project. And it was incredibly well written. So the capstone involves creating at the end of it a product that lives on in some form. For me, it was a one pager, which again is like something that I every day now I'm writing one pagers at work. But for this person, I think it was clearly to publish a sort of it was like a guiding principle document that's hosted, in fact, on the Hopkins website right now. It's around recovery housing, in fact. And I said, of course, this is an incredibly acceptable source. And so just an example of how tangible the work is coming, not just people coming out of this program, but while they're still in it, there's a serious impact that's being made.
It's a great example. The assignments and projects are not make work. They're like I've had students who wrote testimony for an assignment and then gave that testimony to the state legislature. So yeah, that's a great example. All right, let's keep going because I want to make sure we have time for questions. Okay, here's some nice little pictures of our community doing all kinds of different stuff. It's been really cool to watch. There was no collegiate recovery program at all on our campus before this program started, and now there is, and it was started by our own students. This is folks speaking on panels, walking in the SAMHSA walk, and doing all kinds of different trainings and things like that. The folks are very involved on campus and in DC, as well as kind of in national policy, even as students.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're curious about the Collegiate Recovery Group, also that was co-founded and is now co-presided over by our students, that is called Hoyas for Recovery. All right, so now I will take over for a bit, run through admissions quickly, but of course I'm very available for your questions if you have them. Just want to make sure there's time for questions. At the end, I'll go over kind of the application process and any other information to know about securing funding for your degree. Firstly, here is a handy application checklist. Feel free to screenshot or take a picture if it's helpful, but all of this information should also be available on our program website, addictionpolicy.georgetown.edu. First of all, you're going to complete the application form online. That's the way you submit all of this information to us. That application is found at gradapply.georgetown.edu. You'll find a lot of apply buttons on our website that will take you to that same address. You will now need an application fee. Typically, that fee is waived if you submit your application for January 15th every year. We are, of course, past that deadline right now, so if you're looking to join the current cohort, you will need to submit an application fee of $90. Next up, we require an approximately 500-word academic statement of purpose, in which you'll discuss your academic journey, what brought you to apply to the program, and what you hope to get out of it. Although it's listed as optional, we do also strongly urge applicants to fill out the optional personal background statement. It's roughly the same amount of words, and this is a really great way to expand on your personal background and experiences and how they contribute to your interest in this field. And it's a great way to demonstrate that you'll be an active contributor in our community. So it's a really great way to have us get to know you and also to kind of fill in any perceived gaps you feel like are in your application. Next up, you'll submit your resume or curriculum vitae and 2 letters of recommendation. If you're early in your education, perhaps currently completing a degree, we'd love to have at least 1 recommendation be from an academic you've worked with, such as a professor. But we do have students and applicants who are long out of school, so we will accept 1 or both letters from a trusted professional, like someone you've worked with. The other good thing to know is April 1st is our final deadline, but we will accept the names and emails of recommenders by that deadline, even if you don't have the letters. Letters have a grace period of 1 to 2 weeks. We do not need you to have recommendation letters in hand to submit your application come April 1st. Next up, we require your unofficial transcripts. As soon as it's available, of course, we will also need your official transcripts. Typically, we ask people to send those in after they've been accepted to the program. But before that date, by that April 1st deadline, unofficial transcripts that show all grades from all undergraduate and graduate study you've done in the past is perfectly fine. No need for anything from high school. Finally, if you attended a school where English was not the primary language of instruction, we require a demonstration of English language proficiency. You'll see on this blue box here on the bottom the minimum scores on each of the tests we accept to be considered eligible for admission to the program. The first one is the TOEFL. They just got a new scoring system, so on the new test it would be minimum of 5.0 score, and on the old test a minimum 100 score. And for the IELTS test, we require a minimum score of 7. You'll also see finally that we do not require a GRE test. So as I alluded to, there is some eligibility requirements for submitting an application to the program. First, applicants must hold a bachelor's degree or equivalent from an accredited institution. This should be equivalent to a 4-year undergraduate degree in the United States. If you are an international student and you are unsure, we highly recommend submitting a WES evaluation to Georgetown, which will, so to speak, translate your transcripts into a way that our admissions officers can determine is equivalent to the US system. Next up, of course, as you've probably seen from this, we are people who are really passionate about what we do, and we really love to get involved with the field. We're trying to raise a cohort of students that are ready to kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, in this field. So demonstrated interest in addiction policy is a must. If you have interests or experiences in public policy, social science, healthcare, or community service, all of that is strongly preferred. And consideration will also be given to individuals, of course, with lived experience. That's something you're more than welcome to elaborate on in your application. Finally, the Office of Graduate Studies, which kind of presides over us, requires a minimum grade point average of 3.0 on a 4.0 scale in order for us to admit students to the program. With this in mind, however, I do want to draw your attention to that blue box in the corner. Because we do conduct a holistic review of applications. What that means is we have had successful students come straight from undergraduate study, from mid-career transitions, and even from long-term recovery. Some of our most successful students have had challenges and setbacks in the past, but they've been really, really valuable assets in their field. So because we're a small cohort and a mission-driven program, we know that not everyone has the same professional or academic journey, and we'd really love to talk to you about that. So if you are concerned about any of these eligibility requirements, but feel you're an otherwise compelling applicant, we really encourage you to reach out to us via our email, addictionpolicy@georgetown.edu, or me directly. In some cases, we've been able to make successful appeals for students who do not meet some of this criteria to join the program based on our kind of belief in their ability to improve performance in the future. Right, as I mentioned, those application deadlines, our priority deadline has passed. Our regular deadline is April 1st of this year. The application fee is $90, and we are reviewing applications on a rolling basis. Typically takes us about 6 to 8 weeks to review each application, but feel free to follow up after 6 weeks if you would like an update on your status, or do let us know if you're working against a different deadline, and we can try to work with you on that. For everyone who is admitted, classes will begin in July of 2026. And finally, let's talk a little bit about financial aid and then pass it back to all of you for questions. The majority of our students have financed their degrees through multiple sources, such as fellowships and employment benefits. It is rare for a master's program to be fully covered by merit aid or other forms of aid alone, and as we mentioned, we do not offer merit aid due to the fact that we have already negotiated a discounted tuition price for all applicants to the program. So we do recommend searching for additional sources of funding early. External scholarships are typically a big resource for our students. Some of them have used sources such as ProFellow and Scholarships 360 to search. And the Office of Student Financial Aid at Georgetown also has more info on deadlines and tips to applying to external scholarships, as well as the Office of Graduate Studies webpage. If you're eligible for Veterans Affairs benefits, make sure to contact the GU Veterans Service for more information on starting that application process. For domestic applicants, we also do recommend filling out the FAFSA or free application for federal student aid because grad students are indeed eligible to submit this and can be found eligible for federal low interest student loans and potentially be awarded federal work study status. Graduate Career Center also has some additional resources on finding and applying to external scholarships and fellowships, as well as support, of course, for matriculated students applying for jobs. And as soon as you're enrolled in Georgetown, which means you've submitted your enrollment deposit for the program, you're able to set up your email, your net ID, and you're able to apply for campus jobs through the GMS or Workday portal. Graduate positions are typically above the minimum wage for DC, which is $17.95, which is fairly decent. And they can give you experience in different areas across the university. You can work for up to 20 hours a week at Georgetown while studying there, and typically graduate student rates start at around $20. There are some $20 an hour. There are some positions that are higher, maybe like $23, because they are part of a collective bargaining agreement. Those are teaching assistant and research assistant positions most often. Finally, the Georgetown Office of Revenue and Receivables offers monthly installment payment plans for tuition. You can sign up for this through the billing portal for Georgetown. All right, I know we've talked a lot today, so we want to make sure to turn it over to all of you. Feel free to type in the chat or go off of mute if you have any questions about anything we've talked about today.
One practical question. So, if it takes about 8 weeks to get an application, acceptance or decline, and we get it in by April 1st, that's May, June, like, it sounds like there's very little, like if we were applying for this year, there's very little time to know whether or not you got in before you start. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, so those dates, those are those time to review um, days are dependent on when during the cycle you apply. So we're sensitive to that, and if you apply last minute, we'll squeeze it in enough time for you to go ahead and start at the appointed time.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, one other practical question, because clearly my life is in Chicago, but I would really like to do this full time. And I'm curious about just the daily class schedule, because I know in the spring there's a Friday integrative seminar. Are the classes and the experiences generally Monday through Friday? Or because or are they usually like Monday through Thursday? Do you know what I mean? Like, how are they
Yeah.
spread out? How are classes spread out over the week?
Yeah, this is designed to be an in-person full-time program, so we do have in-person courses throughout the week. Um, yeah, I'd say we usually have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday courses for sure. We definitely have our Friday one. The first virtual summer can give some more flexibility for people to kind of prepare and move to DC, but typically most students will move to the area for the
Oh, I'm just
program
I'm just
because
trying
it's
to
a
figure
little
out.
difficult. Yeah.
Right, no, I'm just trying to figure out how easy it would be to like every
Mhm.
now and then fly home for a weekend, which clearly if there's a Friday seminar, you're not able to, but if usually class only goes through Thursday, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, there's always going to be a Friday afternoon in the fall
Okay,
and the spring.
hmm
okay, good to
So
know.
for sure. Now the Monday, who's the Monday class, Jenny? Is it always the same?
I'll look now and see if I can get a sense of the schedule. Yeah, we have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, for example, in the fall, as well as the Friday class. And typically these are later in the evening. Like some of them start around 3 and some of them are earlier in the afternoon, but most of them are like start at 4 or 5, as a way to accommodate people who are working in the area.
Got it. Good to know.
Yeah, sometimes people go home after the Friday seminar, and then come back, during the day on Monday. Monday, I think the class is in the evening. And then, I don't know about every other professor, but like I open my class on for Zoom
Mhm.
also. So if someone's got a work commitment somewhere else or a family commitment or if they're sick or whatever, they can zoom in. It's not ideal because then you can't like fully participate, but
Mhm.
from time to time it's totally happens. And there's also like a lot of weeks where there's like a spring break, there's an Easter break, it's a university schedule, so it's
Yeah, I have a daughter in college, so
okay.
they're
So
never in school.
exactly. So there's I would say there's some good amount of flexibility that can be worked around. And it's not hard to fly back and like I live in Kentucky, so I
Okay.
fly back and forth. It's not, especially from Chicago, you're gonna have a direct flight, so it's not a big deal to fly.
Yeah,
Great.
Professor LaBelle also said in the past, students have commuted after Friday seminar and the Monday class is at 5 p.m.
Yeah, that's really that makes it a lot easier. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, no
Um,
problem. Right, do we have any other questions?
If you have another one, Miriam, that's okay.
Yeah, feel free. We have a bit of time.
I guess in a way I feel like I have so many. um, so one of the things you mentioned that a lot of students do internships. So if we come in with a pretty clear idea of like what, well, actually, I guess there's a question and a follow-up question, which is like, I feel like I have a pretty clear idea of the direction I would like to go with,
Mhm.
but I also know that you never know what experiences are going to shape you and kind of make you say, oh, I thought I wanted to do this, but this is actually going to be more effective at eventually, like it having an impact. So I'm curious how you set people up with those internships, and yeah, like how do you set people up, and what kind of experiences do they offer?
So I'm going to kick this over to Professor LaBelle just to say I have a phone call that I might be receiving that I might have to hop off. So just letting you guys know, but I think Professor LaBelle has a good answer to that question.
Thanks. Sorry, I was lurking in the background because I was at another meeting. But Miriam, just to clarify, we don't set you up with an internship. We provide connections so that you can do your own internships. And this is a pretty small community. The addiction policy field is pretty small. And people now know, they come to us to seek out opportunities, a lot of people. So Shatterproof is a national organization that works on treatment. They've often taken our students. We've had students who work at the Office of National Drug Control Policy, SAMHSA, HHS. Federal opportunities are pretty limited right now. I have a predisposition to not recommend internships that are not paid, but if there are some unpaid opportunities that I'll pass along, but I believe interns should be paid. Ben, I don't recall. Did you work? Did you intern?
I did. I interned with HIPS, which is a harm reduction organization in DC, working on like some advocacy campaigns with them.
Does that answer your question, Mary?
It does. That's really helpful. Thank you.
I just add that some students have even started internships while they're in the program. You probably want to consult with Professor LaBelle before you do that, but DC is a place where being in the right place at the right time, for example, when there aren't a whole bunch of graduates from undergrad applying for internships, could be beneficial in finding something.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people intern on the Hill. An organization that we have good connections with is the National National Children's, I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly the name of it, but they're one of the only organizations that works at the intersection of child welfare and substance use. And they're in, Nancy Young is the head of that. They're based on the West Coast, but they have remote opportunities, but again, their funding has been cut by SAMHSA, so but that's a good contact as well.
All right. Any other questions? I'll put up our contact slide too in case people want to grab our contact information before they have to head out, because I know we're a bit over time.
Yeah, feel free to reach out and we can talk to you. And as Dr. Myers said, we're really cognizant of life circumstances. If you get everything in by April 1 and it's complete, then we'll make sure to look at it quicker. It doesn't, it won't take that long. Hello, Logan.
Hey, I have a question about coming in with a position. So I recently took a spot on the National Steering Committee for Center Addiction Recovery as an emergency leader, and my contract ends in September. So after September, of course, it wouldn't be an issue, but I just didn't know what it looks like over the summer and first part of that fall semester. I'm not sure what the requirements. I know I need to go present at a few conferences for them and help with the SAMHSA Summit. And so I didn't know what taking some time off for classes looked like, if that's allowed, or
Yeah, I mean, it's up. So the summer you have 3 classes, data, U.S. addiction policy, and healthcare financing. And I'm looking at my wall to tell me exactly what days those are. Data is 1 day a week, typically starting at 4 on Wednesdays. U.S. addiction policy is 2 days, 1:30 to 3:40 online. And then healthcare financing is 2 days starting at 5, Monday and Thursday. In the fall, classes start in August. I teach on Fridays. I mean, I want it to be the exception rather than the rule that students aren't there. I will record the class and I will give it to students, and then they have to do an exercise, but I think you miss a lot. And it's only a year program. So I was a night law student. I get the whole working full time and going to school at night. It's not easy. So it's up to each individual professor. But again, it really has to be the exception rather than the rule. That professors will record and let you use it for that circumstance. But we could certainly talk about that.
Yeah, I recommend reaching out to us when you get a sense of what your schedule could potentially work like with that, and then we can give more specific details about schedule expectations for the program and see if that works out.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And congrats on your offer. All right. Here's our contact information for anyone who wants to reach out to us afterwards. There's our email, our Instagram, and our LinkedIn are great ways to kind of see what our alumni and students are up to in real time. People are always doing things, especially in September, which is National Recovery Month. There's usually a big kind of flurry of activity in the addiction policy community, which is a great thing to see. So we really recommend following those pages, following our newsletter, which you can sign up for through our website, and really get a sense of what people are doing in the field. And we thank you again for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure, and we're so excited that so many people are really interested in the future of addiction policy, recovery, and drug policy, which are very urgent issues at this point in time. So feel free to reach out to us. We can definitely offer things from campus tours, getting connected with alumni, current students, sitting in on classes, or talking to faculty. All of that is very much within our wheelhouse, and we're happy to chat about it. So,
Miriam, we have an alumnus who is in Chicago working at the AMA.
Oh, wow.
Nikki Tierney.
So
Nikki, sorry.
So maybe I could reach out to you.
We can connect you.
Yeah,
That would be great.
absolutely. People are
Okay.
usually very friendly too if you want to reach out to them directly, but we can make those connections as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Take
Have a
care.
great day, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Ben.
It's all of you.
Take care.